You ready? Council, thank you. We'll resume the council meeting of August 6th. I've just reviewed with the clerk the order of business. I believe we're starting with the forensic audit. I did ask if there was a legal opinion rendered yet on the item in camera that I wish to have in the public debate. Councillor Sprovieri opened that topic as well. I have been advised that the lawyer who prepared the opinion is not planned to be in this building till approximately 2:30, so we will not know what that outcome is, but it is the goal of learning that, and then that will be done subsequently. So we're going to have the forensic audit review presentation. Is that the plan, that you will both come forward and make a presentation? And then there are no delegations. However, council, you're free to log in and make your statements. And the report is here with a recommendation. Is there a recommendation? So council, the public know how this works.
This point is a recommendation for receipt.
Council, the recommendation is moved by Councillor Hames and Councillor Pelletier to receive the report and the correspondence. There are no further recommendations as the report was simultaneously released to members of council, uploaded to the city website, and simultaneously sent to the Integrity Commissioner, which was the direction of council when this was first called or when Deloitte was retained. So the receipt of the report today, it does not have to be moved to the Integrity Commissioner. That is underway. Okay? I would like to ask then if we could have our two representatives here. Mr. Fowley, thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for being here to make your presentation. And to everyone watching and to those in the audience, we are now moving to the item called the forensic audit of mayor and councillors' expenses. There is an associated report identified as L9. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. My name is Robert Fowley. I'm a partner at Deloitte, and I'm joined here by another new partner of Deloitte, Guillaume Van, and we are the co-authors of the report that you have before you in the binder. As Madam Mayor has mentioned, the report was simultaneously uploaded on the website of the City of Brampton and is available to the public for review. It is a 96-page report, and the purpose of our attendance today is to introduce it. We will be presenting on 96 pages of findings, but we are here to answer questions. I can assure you that a great deal of effort and time and commitment was undertaken to carry out this audit, and we need to thank a number of people within the City of Brampton for their support and cooperation through the audit, including the Finance Department, the Councillor's Office, the Mayor's Office, and a number of other departments that were instrumental in providing us with information on a timely basis, and we thank them for the cooperation, as we also thank the members of council who cooperated fully with our audit and responded to all our questions and provided documentation that was available to them, to us, to allow us to complete our work.
Were you both speaking?
Yes, so as my colleague Robert mentioned, my name is Guillaume Van, a partner at Deloitte, and I'm one of the co-authors of this report.
Thank you. Did you want to take a seat in case there's questions? Perhaps two of our chiefs could make, perhaps Julian and Marilyn Ball could make available so that you're able to be seated and comfortable. Thank you, council. Now we're moving into the questions and comments from member of council. As mayor, I want to make the first comment. The buck stops here. I accept full responsibility, good and bad, but those who have made baseless, inaccurate, and unfair allegations for months need to also accept responsibility too, because they were all found to be baseless. Let me say it again. The buck stops here. I accept responsibility, good and bad, I have the ultimate responsibility for what I do and what my staff do. It's an honor and privilege to serve the people of Brampton, and part of that job is acknowledging where we could have done better and doing better. That is what I have done, and that is what I intend to do. I heard the message loud and clear, and I intend to act on it. I didn't just support the audit, I insisted that the audit also look at the expenditures made by me and my staff. I did that because I wanted to deal with the cheap shots coming from one Toronto Star reporter and political opponents once and for all. I did that because it was the right thing to do. I insisted too that the report come out before the election, not after. People have a right to make an informed decision. In 10 key areas, where allegations have been made over and over by one Star reporter and his golf partners, Deloitte's investigated, and Deloitte's concluded that the allegations were baseless, they were without merit, and they were false. I have said that where I made a mistake, I will act on that. Why won't this partisan reporter admit that he was wrong in 10 key areas? Why won't those who are running for mayor or council do likewise? This report has plenty to say about councillors who have consistently claimed the moral high ground. Well, those councillors, I ask you to accept responsibility too. We will now go to the list. Councillor Sanderson and then Councillor Sprogieri.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I, as the mover of the motion to put the forensic audit forward, I am happy with the, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say I'm happy. I haven't thoroughly gone through it yet. We didn't get it till last night, but there's a lot of really good information in here. I look forward to going through it with a fine-tooth comb, along with my own auditor, my own accountant, just to make sure that I understand everything that's in here. There is a lot of information in here. There's a lot of unanswered information in here. I don't quite understand how we can go through something like this and still have a lot of unanswered questions. So I guess I was speaking to the city manager earlier on, and some of this information we still gotta find out, you know, where this all comes from. There's a lot of very unhappy residents out there, unhappy with the findings of the audit, especially with Madam Mayor and her spending. I know she would like us to go away and keep quiet, but we're speaking on behalf of the residents. So I look forward to the next step of what's happening here. I just have a question, and now that Madam Mayor spoke, she said that the allegations were baseless and false. Is there any truth to that in what's happening in here?
I think the mayor is properly characterized. My apologies. I believe the mayor is properly characterized the findings with respect to the 10 issues that she's identified.
The 10 issues which she identified, but how many issues was there altogether?
Well, they're outlined in the report. I don't have a count of it.
Okay, so 10 is a small number. There's like I said, I have some more questions, but I want to read through it and get all my answers first. There was some issues that I raised when I had my interviews, and I didn't see it anywhere in here, so it may still be there, and I just haven't got to it yet. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there's going to be some other speakers. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sprogieri.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And first of all, I want to thank for the excellent job you've done. I think you have a very clear picture of what's been going on for the last 4 years. I also want to thank St. Graywall. I think he's done an excellent job. And we're all entitled to our opinions around this table. We have a very a varied opinion. But I have to say that I am so impressed with Sands' investigative reporting, that he dug deep, and he uncovered a lot of information that none of us was aware of. And the only way they came out was through the Freedom of Information process. Otherwise, we still, till this day, none of us would be aware of some of the rules being broken, some of the policies being abused, and taxpayers' money being spent, I believe, in a reckless way for personal pleasures. Now, I have to say that also I feel some sympathy for staff, that they were put in a very awkward position. I have to say that, and the cause of that was the new policy that the council adopted in 2007. And that was a value-based policy that caused all this problem. If we had the rule-based policy that was in place prior to 2008, we wouldn't be having this discussion here today. It could be 2007. I don't have the exact, I asked my assistant to get me the report, but she hasn't been able to pull it off yet.
Perhaps I could help, Councillor. The value-based came in with the Integrity Commissioner and Code of Conduct in 2011. Prior to that, there was the rules-based. Thank you.
Well, I have this, I think it's this May 16, 2007, when this thing was, when it was actually proposed, the value-based. That's what my assistant brought me this policy. So anyway, the point is that I'm trying to make is that when we went from a rule-based policy to a value-based policy, I believe that that's where things went wrong. And I also remember that when we had a previous city manager here, we didn't have these problems, and the problems started, when that manager left and the new manager came in, and that's when, according to this report, which I want to ask you a question on about the mayor's gala and golf tournaments, where the senior staff was purchasing tables and foursomes over and above the city policy, which I raised to your attention. I'm going to ask you a question on that after I make my statements about why we're here today with this issue. And I think that the report tells the story. I think that all of us were guilty to some extent, some more, some less, some very minor, some very major. And I believe that none of us are perfect, and there's always possibilities of oversight, unintentional breach of policies that were in place, because staff, based on the value policy, they expected us to make that decision. So staff pretty well was out of this. They could not come to me and say, John, you can't take your wife to the Filipino fundraising dinner at Saint Duel Church, because you're not allowed. If we had the rule-based policy, staff could have told me that. So I wouldn't have had $500 to repay because of that, the various fundraisers I attended in the last 4 years. So the problem here is that, at first I thought it was staff that was at fault for why we're here, but now I understand it was not staff's fault. And probably some of the staff were aware of what was going on, and they were dying to tell us, but they couldn't tell us because we entrusted ourselves to follow the rules, to follow the policies. And we failed to do that, some more, some less. And I have to say that in the amount I've done, it was not intentional. I believe that I was working within the rules, and but unfortunately, I'm not perfect either, and I don't claim to be. So. This value-based policy is a total failure. I had a report when it first was introduced, and I don't have it with me, so I don't want to make statements that I can back, but I do have it somewhere in the files, which I will dig up for future discussion. But I do have a couple of questions to the auditor. The main question. One of the things I raised that I was really passionate about was the senior staff purchasing tables and foursomes to the Mayor's Gala and Golf Tournament, over and above what the city policy stated. And I gave you a copy of the city policy. And the city policy said clearly that first, the tickets are made available to members of council, and if members of council refuse them, then senior staff would have an opportunity to utilize them, and if they refuse them, it will go down to down the line to other staff, and finally to people who are involved in the community, activists, and that's what the policy says. Now, the reason I really raised that is because it was about $180,000 worth, and I remember clearly, and it's also recorded in the newspaper, and it's also on video. I remember clearly the mayor standing up and saying, "There's no taxpayers' dollars that went into my gala and my golf tournament." And when we received the report from staff, dated January 10th, 2013, and you go through that report, that was a total lie. And I don't like to be lied to. I don't mind if someone is not sure and they say, you know, I think this, I think that. Perhaps I did, perhaps I didn't. I can accept that. But to stand up and clearly say that there was no taxpayers' money that went into my golf tournament and my gala, which 75%, we don't know how it's spent. We know how 25% is spent. It goes back to the community. But 75%, it's been reported that it goes towards expenses and towards, I don't know what else. So that is a big problem I have. And for staff, for you to say on your page, on page 60, in your page 50, in your report, and right away, just for the Guardian reporter, since I didn't get this report till 8 o'clock last night, is a lot of material. I didn't have a chance to go through it all, and I was actually reading through that portion when I got caught off guard about the Merrimack contract that was being debated here, because I didn't have enough time to read this last night. I didn't go to bed till midnight, and I got up this morning at 4 o'clock to try to go through this. So one of the things that surprises me in this report, it says on page 50, and so this is a question to you, is that because you're saying that because there was no clear policies that says whether senior staff could purchase tickets or not purchase tickets to the foursomes, you can't really conclude that there was any breach of the policy. But I have to say that there is a policy that tells us exactly how many tickets, the corporate policy that tells us exactly how many tickets and how many foursomes the city can purchase. It's in black and white. And so I have to ask you the question is, how did you come up with that conclusion? That you don't think there is a policy, but in my opinion, there is a policy. So I'd like you to respond to that, please.
as part of our work, we looked at all of the different policies that existed in this instance for the purchase of tickets, attending events, and events of that nature. And we've reported that at section 12.1.1 of our report, which is located at page 49 and 50, from paragraphs 410 to 415. As part of our work, we obtained a listing of the purchases of tickets by the city that were made not only from the group responsible for buying the tickets, but also from other departments within the city. And those numbers are presented in the table at paragraph 412, which shows that over 180,000 in tickets were purchased from 2005 and between 2005 and 2013. So then we turn to the policies as to what was applicable from the policies, and based on our review and based on obtaining the report from the Chief Administrative Officer dated January 2013, the policy for the purchasing tickets was not restrictive in terms of other departments, which resulted in other departments buying tickets for attending those events. So then we look towards other policies that may or may not exist that would dictate if those purchases are allowable or not. And in our work, we did not identify any policies that precluded those other departments from buying additional tickets from what was listed in the policy. I forget the actual name of the policy. The lunch and dinner table sponsorship policy, which is policy number 14.5.0. So, from a lack of specific policy that would preclude city staff from purchasing tickets, we can't come up to a conclusion that the employees or the city staff are in breach of a policy.
Well, through the chair, and I understand and I read your conclusion, but I still have to maintain that this policy that I have here in my hands, it's dated January 26, 2005. It clearly mentions senior staff, members of senior staff management. So in my mind, it's like the Municipal Act. The Municipal Act tells us whatever we can do. That's what the municipalities are allowed to do, and we follow that act, and we follow the rules. So if it's not listed on things that the municipalities' responsibilities, we can't take on new responsibilities because it's not listed. So to me, if we have a policy that mentions already that there's the councilors, the members of senior management, city staff, board of members of community service clubs, then to me that would say that this is a policy that covers about buying tickets or force them to an event. We also have a list of, this is where I got caught, we have a list of permitted city-sponsored events, and they're all listed there. The hospital gala, the Big Brothers and Sisters, the Safe City tournament, fundraiser, and so on and so forth. I think there's, maybe Dennis can tell us, maybe about 12 I think altogether, or maybe more. I don't know how many we have, Dennis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, each year when the report came to council, there was a varying number, but roughly a dozen to 14, 15 events per year.
Yeah, so to me, I got caught because I bought tickets that was not listed. To me, here it's listed. It's already listed. So just because there's an absence of specifically talking about whether senior staff can buy tickets for certain events, to me, it does not say that it permits them to do so, because we don't have a policy that talks about specifically. But we have a policy where it covers the whole group. It covers councilors, members of senior staff, city staff. It's here. So to me, I think this is the policy that we should be utilizing when it comes to this. unless you feel that, in your expert opinion, that this policy did not apply, I don't know what I can say about that. I mean, it could be a matter of opinion, it could be a matter of law, I don't know. But the other question, just to move on, that I have finally is, and that was a big issue with me too at last budget. I felt that the $49,000 that's allocated to the mayor for limo service, I think it was excessive. And I asked council to reduce it, I believe, to half. I think it was 20,000. But my motion didn't fly. And now I see that there's a lot of cases where the limo's fellow was paid, but it doesn't tell us what he was paid for. There's a whole list here. Now, why weren't you able to determine whether, normally you would issue a receipt, and that would have a detailed, to me, you should have a detailed list of saying, okay, Saturday I went to Toronto, Sunday I went to Woodbridge, and took the mayor to these various places. But in your report, there's a lot that's not answered. You don't know where this limo guy went with the mayor, and he got paid the same. So, are we to assume that, or the question is, is there a contract that says I give you $4,000 a month, regardless whether you drive me here or drive me there? Some days you may drive me more, some days you might drive me less. Is that the kind of arrangement is between the mayor and their limo service?
So in terms of the mayor's driving services contract for the services of a sedan car to attend events and to travel, that's reported as section 8.2.6 of our report on page 33. The amount is set in an annual budget that's approved by council. And following the approval of the budget, a contract is entered into with a company, an external company, to provide those services. The company provides those services at effectively a flat fee, which is the $47,000 to $49,000 a year, depending on the GST in the period. And based on that contract value, monthly invoices are issued for 1/12 of that value. So I think it's $37.50 per month before taxes. The reason why we identified it as not having sufficient information to determine whether it's an appropriate expense is because, in our opinion, we did not obtain information regarding the specific use of the services. So the contract does read, and that's outlined at page 33, that it's to provide driving aid services to the office of the mayor, 24-hour, 7 days a week basis, on an as needed or on call basis. In our opinion, we felt that we should obtain more information, that more details should be available that would provide a listing of what trips were completed by the driver and who participated in those trips, whether it was the mayor with someone else or someone else. So due to that, that's why the entire transactions regarding the driving services were categorized as having insufficient information to specifically categorize it as acceptable or not.
Yeah. And finally, through the chair, on the travel and accommodation section, where there's extensive times when the air flights, you identified that flying within Canada were not, you stated that in your opinion, the policy does say that they should be economy, and you felt that the flights were not economy based and that they were more than economy. And also the accommodations in the hotels, where I've been to FCM 3 times in my 25 years, and I remember I stayed at some of the, in Quebec City at the Chateau Frontenac, and I was in Vancouver once, and Calgary. And I do remember that there was different rates in the hotel. So you could get a room for $250. You get a room for $500. Now I do recall that we got the room for $250, and according to what I read here, the mayor was getting rooms in a $500, $600 bracket, and the explanation was that, well, I have meetings in my room with this meeting space, and there's food and drinks available, and I don't charge per diem when I travel the $60 that we normally get traveling. That covers lunch and dinner, because breakfast usually is provided, and and that's fine. I mean, you can use that rationale, but at the same time, you could also say the per diem is $60. She got a room for $500. She could have got one for $250. So when you do the math, and you get rid of the $60, you're still about $150 over and above what the normal people pay. So I see you did a good job in identifying that those were violations of the policy, and I appreciate that you were able to conclude that. And to me, that was the most substantial part of these, the abuse that I believe that occurred. It was in the travel and also the accommodation. So I want to again thank you very much for the report. We can say whatever we want. I think that the numbers speak for themselves. I think this is going to be made available wide and far, and the public can make their own. You also said in your comments here that in the review section, the restrictions on page 11, that you made a statement saying that our report is our work was not designed to identify all circumstances of inappropriate behavior or other irregularities, if any, which may exist. For the purpose of this report, we have had to assume that the documents of other information disclosed to us are complete. You also go on to say that we express no opinion as to whether the information presented in this report is sufficient to establish civil or criminal wrongdoings, as not only a court can determine these matters. So I guess, you haven't made this statement in your report. I guess the question to you finally is, what's council's options here? Based on your expertise, I'm sure you've probably done similar audits before. We're dealing with this sort of thing. Maybe not. Maybe this is your first time. But what would we recommend, council? The public's expecting us to do something. They're really, with the attention that as this issue is drawn. I mean, look at this place. Look at this place. Look at the media. It's all over Canada. And probably it's going to go down just like Rob Ford down the States too. So the question is, what's in your opinion, what's our options here as a council? Should we ask the Attorney General to review this? Should we hire a professional lawyer dealing with municipal issues to review this and let a lawyer advise us? Or do we just leave this and hopefully, if there's some wrongdoings in the police or Revenue Canada because the mayor was using some of her gala funds to pay back some of her trips and some of the activities that she carried on. That could be a violation of the Revenue Canada because it's money that she didn't pay taxes on. So tell us what's our option here, if you have an opinion.
We do have an opinion. I think your option here is to seek legal counsel and input from your senior leadership team to provide you with options on how to proceed. You are a corporation. You have certain obligations and requirements, and I think that would be best dealt with by dealing with legal counsel, having a review of the report, and seeking also input from the senior leadership team to come back with a list of options available to the corporation on how to proceed forward.
Well, yeah, I understand that part. We want to close the loopholes. We want to make it watertight so that, you know, this doesn't happen again. I understand we have to do that, and I think we've already taken steps to do that. But do we just forget about, you know, now, do I pay the $500 back? Does a mayor pay back whatever amount it adds up to? So is that up to us to decide and then let the public judge us? How do you see this?
Again, you work with a very senior leadership team, quite a talented team, and I think you should seek their input on how to proceed forward and what's in the best interest of the corporation and in the best interest of the citizens of Brampton.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Moore.
Thank you. It used to be when you followed you, there was nothing left to say, but now with Councillor Sprovieri. I do want to agree with Councillor Sprovieri's observations around the rules-based code of conduct versus the values-based. At the time, I didn't support the values-based code of conduct. I recall saying, and I'll say it again here today, we sit around this table and we're in the business of passing bylaws that we expect every taxpayer in the city to abide by, and I think that we owed it to our taxpayers to have a rules-based code of conduct so that they could look to us and say, you're breaking the rules. The idea of a values-based code of conduct, I think, was not the wisest decision that this council made. And in fact, I think that's probably proving itself out today. I guess on the good news side of things, we've only had 3 years of the rules, or the values-based code of conduct. So it is cause for us to take a serious look and transition back to a rules-based code of conduct. And in fact, we did do a great deal of that during the last budget deliberation for the 2014 budget when we were looking at our expenses. What's interesting is that when you look at the breaches and potential breaches, because there was a lack of documentation for 10 members of council, it adds up to about $74,000. So there's $74,000 over 10 people over 3 years. But in what I consider very sharp contrast, you have 287,500 breaches and potential breaches over one person over that same period of time. When you look at the members of council, had there been a rules-based code of conduct, or even, quite frankly, with a values-based code of conduct, but with administrative oversight, I think that there would probably be practically zero on the list for members of council, because there was no, certainly when I looked through the list, there was no deliberate attempt to try and skirt the rules, to try and sort of milk the expense accounts that we had. Had there been the proper checks and balances in place, the $74,000 would not have occurred. And it was very transparent. It was out there for any member of council to come in and review our expense account. On the other hand, with the mayor's $287,000, a lot of that was not only hidden from the public, it was hidden from members of council. And the mayor will sit in these council chambers and argue that we passed the budget, we approved the budget, we did, and put all the burden and the responsibility on members of council. I don't know how you find something that's buried in departmental budgets that you don't know the mayor is accessing. And we certainly didn't sit around this table and approve first-class travel and luxury hotel rooms and some of the other things that are on the list. So while I say on one hand that administrative oversight would have addressed a lot of the breaches and potential breaches for members of council, I don't believe that it would have caught the mayors. I think what we have is an attitude of just complete disregard for taxpayers' dollars. You see that when you look at the hotel fares. I mean, who stays in a hotel at $500 a night while your staff member stays in a room substantially less than that? That to me, and I said it last night to the Globe, and I'll say it again in these chambers, that is entitlement. And we all agree around this table that that needs to stop. I have a question for the auditor with respect to the driver of the $155, almost $156,000 in the mayor's budget that you don't have sufficient documentation. Could you not match the mayor's calendar with the driver and come up with something reasonable that would provide some documentation or evidence that the driver was being used for city business?
We didn't have the full calendar of the mayor, and we understand that in some instances the mayor may drive herself to some events, while in other circumstances the driving services may be used to attend an event or a series of events. So simply by looking at a calendar.
But all of those events would be in a calendar. I mean, the mayor's calendar, above all members of council, the mayor is considered an officer of the corporation, and her calendar is a matter of public record. So all of the details of where the mayor is and where she spends her time should be recorded in her calendar as a requirement of that.
That would provide with a number of events that the mayor attends. It would not provide with an indication as to whether the mayor drove herself to the event or used the driving services to attend that event. So for our purposes, it would not have helped to get closer to a determination.
Well, that's unfortunate, because I think that's a lot of money, almost $156,000, for which there is a lack of documentation. I think the taxpayers in the city of Brampton are pretty smart. They can do the math, so to speak. We can focus on, and the mayor would like us to focus on those things that she did right. I think the taxpayers expect us to do things right. So if we're going to, I hope it's not limited to the 10 things that she identified in the report. It should be a whole heck of a lot more than that, as it should be for all members of council. So I think that the taxpayers need to focus on the amount of spending that took place that was actual breaches or potential breaches, and that's close to $300,000 for one person. And that's a lot of money by anybody's standards. I have another question for the auditor, and I'm going to go, Councillor Sprovieri made reference to page 11, 107, where he says you're stating to council as part of the report that we express no opinion as to whether the information presented in this report is sufficient to establish civil or criminal wrongdoing, as only a court can determine these matters. Now, Councillor Sprovieri, I think, asked you, how do we get this matter before the courts? Can anybody in this room, for example, take this auditor's report and ask for a police investigation? So that's a question I have for you.
The answer is yes.
So anybody in this room, or any member of the public who's aware of this, can ask for a police investigation?
That's correct. It would be better coming from the corporation, but
I agree
it's
with
a
you.
public fine.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think we sit back and ask the public to undertake that. It is far better if we were to make that decision ourselves. So I have another question for you. If that were to happen and a police investigation were to be requested by anybody, whether it's the corporation or a member of the public taxpayer, would you, as the auditor and the author of this investigation, would you be obligated to cooperate fully with any law enforcement agency? In other words, provide them with the backup documentation that you have the story behind the numbers?
Well, typically in situations like the one you're describing, the police would have to execute a search warrant for the material, and we would be obligated to comply with that search warrant.
So it's not something that we as a corporation could ask you to cooperate with them? You would require a search warrant for that?
In this circumstance, yes.
Okay. Is it, in your opinion, is there anything in your findings and through your investigation that might forecast fraudulent behavior?
So you're asking a legal question.
I'm asking you as an auditor, having
It's a-
a vast
fraud is
amount of
illegal.
experience in looking at numbers.
Fraud is a legal determination. And that's exactly why we have the paragraph that you just referenced in our report, that it has to be determined by either a lawyer advising the corporation or a Crown attorney. But it's really not the role of a forensic accountant to give a legal opinion on whether fraud has occurred or not.
I wasn't asking you if fraud had occurred. I was asking you if your findings, if from your findings, that you might forecast that fraudulent behavior was a possibility.
It's the same thing. You're asking for a legal opinion from an accountant.
Okay, that's fine. Because I'm going to tell you what causes me a great deal of concern in this is the fact that there were personal expenses occurred, that they were reimbursed by the fundraising efforts of the mayor, and that, I guess I'm of the opinion, and others might not be, but that is a matter for Revenue Canada, that there was a personal gain and a personal benefit from money that was raised, money that was gifted, quite frankly, to a fundraising effort in this community that was to be reinvested back into the community. And last time I checked, Miami wasn't part of this community. And personal expenses that were incurred, whether it was, we've all seen the credit card bills, there were sightseeing tours and restaurant bills, and the mayor will argue that had to do with, some work that she was doing on behalf of the city, and if that was the case, then it was a legitimate city expense, and it should show on the city expenses. It shouldn't be reimbursed from a private gala, for which 75 cents of every dollar collected goes to run the gala, and only 25 cents of every dollar gets invested into the community groups, and we're discovering now that some of that is being invested back for her own personal gain, and that's just wrong. Revenue Canada, you read the media reports, and there are regular reportings from various charitable organizations in this country where they are under a great deal of scrutiny, and that the money that's collected is not going for its intended purpose. And I think in fairness to the taxpayers of this city who have invested $180,000 in that fundraising, to the people who have committed a great deal of money, upwards of $750,000 annually, and possibly more in some of the previous years. I think they deserve to know where their money was being invested and where it was being spent. So I'll listen to some of the other speakers, but I do think that I'll take some advice from the city manager in terms of how do we move this council to a decision in a thoughtful way to getting this before the police or the Attorney General, or whatever the appropriate law enforcement agency might be. So I'll conclude my comments, but I'll reserve the right to go back on the board.
Councillor Flashy?
I'm going to talk about my own expenses, if that's okay. Questions about mine. The reason being, some of them in the report here had mentioned about, for example, the Powerade Center, where the use of the suite, and I believe it was during the battalion times. And I guess in explanations, I guess maybe it wasn't given to you that there, and I checked with Grant, because I think Grant was in the same situation. There were times when economic development would say to us, Mara, would say, the battalion box is available, it's not being used. Is there somebody that could use it? So we would give, like in 2 cases I did that, and I gave it to youth sports groups and that to use, rather than have a box sitting empty at a battalion getting a city box. But those explanations aren't given. So I guess it kind of looks bad in some ways, but most things you can explain away. I mean, the same as, I'm dealing with mine about the, I've got to go to mine, sorry. Mine's section 8, so I'm dealing with the issue of, there's 4 things, I think they total $1,078. One is for the William Osler Health System Foundation, the hockey night for Osler. I thought I had mentioned to you when we went through the questions that was given back to Osler for their volunteers, for the association to use. I wasn't going to go to the old timers, but I mean, it was a fundraiser for the hospital. The Art of Jazz was absolutely, that was a dinner expense, $187, and that was with the main act and the organizers for that dinner. I know there was 2 there. Remember we discussed that.
No, on that specific transaction, we did not get any further information.
Oh, okay, all right, because I had asked that be passed to you. And the other one was Skate Brampton Chinguacousy event program sponsorship. That was, the $500 was for the event, was being held in Cassie Campbell, which was our newest rec center. And it was for all Ontario skates, and we wanted to support the Skate Canada figure skating, the Brampton and Chinguacousy. And as part of the sponsorship for the program, they gave you 2 tickets, and they were never used. But it reads here, no specific record of attendees. It was just, they were never, the 2 tickets were never used to go to the event, so that's why there's no attendees. So, I mean, that's in my case here. The other one was the battalion tickets, which I had bought personally. I guess my question to council is, who's going to pay it? What are you going to pay back? Absolutely. What has to be? There's enough. I mean, it's unfortunately 2 of the council and members are away with the biggest amounts. One's $16,000 and the other one's $9,000. And that, and I fully understand. I mean, we've had some discussions, some of the councilors, about events that you go to. So if you go to support a charity and you take your spouse, and I guess the rules are, the way you look at the rules, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's only one rule. So you tie that into the same one if somebody wants to go to the theater on the taxpayer and takes his spouse, which I totally believe if you can't afford to go yourself, then don't go. I absolutely have always been of that belief, but there's some in here that absolutely abused it. It's to no end. And you talk about people abusing the system, Elaine, I think you mentioned it, that there was nobody that's abused it. I absolutely think there was abuse of the system here in dealing with it, and I truly believe that everything here should be paid back, and that to the city. Those that certainly don't, I mean, you have the heading expense policy breach amount in the column, and then you list it, and you go down through those. And the ones that, as I say, there is a fine line. If it's a charity event that you're going to, we did have a policy that you could take a spouse to that thing. But if you're going to something for personal use, then that's like me going to a grocery store and saying, well, people ask me questions at a grocery store, so I guess I should be able to charge my groceries to the city. Because, I mean, that's some of the excuses that are coming out that are absolutely ridiculous. And I truly believe that every one of those should be reimbursed back to the city, is my position on those. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Somewhere down in Toronto, Rob Ford said, "Thank you for Brampton. We've got all the press here today." Not on him. One of the things that really sticks out in my mind here is that we need our staff. And I know this is going to go to the Integrity Commissioner, but I think the Integrity Commissioner will come back and tell us whether or not there was inappropriate things or not inappropriate things. One of the things that stands out clear to me, and I said this years ago, but I'll say it again today, is take the credit cards out of our hands.
Yeah.
I don't have one. I refused it. I was the only member of council to refuse it. Some didn't use it. Some didn't use it at all. But it leads to me, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody here, but it leads to discretion being used. And I personally would like to go back to those days where, and Peter Honeyborn will remember, because there was times when I called Peter or called the treasurer at the time and said, is this an appropriate use? And we could get advice from staff on it. As Councillor Moore said, we went to a value base, which I voted against. And now we're stuck on using our own discretion, and sometimes that gets us in trouble. And we need to go back to a rules base, and we talked about it, and that's what we're going to do, I believe. We need to have staff be able to interpret things for us at times so that we don't lead to this. But the reason I say this is we need to give direction, I believe, to our staff to review the policies on credit cards for council members and for their staff. And I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody here, but it sure looks to me like we've got to take those things out of our hands. Mr. Corbett, I don't know how you can, what we need to do to get you to take a look at that and report back to us. But my personal opinion is the council office should have one credit card. And that would be our office coordinator to have it in her hands. And then anytime we need to put something on it, she can check with staff, it would be put on it. That's the way it used to be. I don't believe anybody got in trouble when it was like that. I would say the same thing for the mayor's office. One credit card. One staffer has a credit card, things need to be put on it. They can check with staff, make sure they're appropriate use. That's how it goes out. There's too many credit cards floating around here that we need to take away. And we have to remember there's a cost to those credit cards. So when personal use are being put on those credit cards, that's the taxpayers paying for that use of that credit card. So Mr. Corbett, I don't know how we do that, but I'd certainly like to, if we could, make a motion that we have staff review that and come back. And I think it needs to be changed before our new council starts. So that new councillors will start with a new, fresh way of doing things, and not the first day that they get elected, we handed a credit card. We can put that, I don't know if we take that as direction.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if you want to put that in a motion, then we'll carry that out.
I'd be happy to do that. I'll be a seconder.
Yes.
Okay? Is it, Grant? You're done?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. You look like you were about to say something else. Councillor Sanderson and then Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's been a great debate, a great discussion. I would like to put a motion forward that we have staff seek legal advice on how we go further.
Councillor, the clerk is asking what you mean by further.
Well, how do we go further? What's the next step?
Well,
We asked the auditors what the next step is, and can it go, or where should it go? And they said that the next step would be to seek legal advice, get the advice of our chiefs, and get legal advice from a lawyer, outside lawyer, as to if there's any fraudulent or any wrongdoing. We got all the stuff, the information here. It's just a matter of getting that information. So I'm asking to put a motion forward that we ask staff, i.e. the city manager, to look into what that would entail.
So that's a motion, it's seconded. Seconded, okay. Councillor Miles?
Madam Mayor, at the start of this process, we passed a motion, this council passed a motion that said that any item as a result of the forensic audit that was determined to not be city business would be paid back, and there was unanimous support of council for that. So I think as a first direction, that is a motion that council had already passed. I think the second direction was that it goes to the Integrity Commissioner. These were all predetermined decisions. It's already been sent to the Integrity Commissioner, and the Integrity Commissioner will determine whether or not there's breaches of the Code of Conduct. And the Code of Conduct includes everything from the Municipal Act, the Conflict of Interest Act, and all of the policies and procedures of the municipality. So I don't think that we have to make any more decisions. I think we made the decision the decisions were pretty clear. The decision was you pay back what wasn't considered to be city business, and you get referred to the Integrity Commissioner, which it's my understanding all of these reports have already gone. And for the members of the public that are here, this binder with all these policies in it, the City of Brampton's Code of Conduct for members of council, so it refers to every piece of legislation that there is, including Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So all of the information that the Integrity Commission needs to look at will be there. If the Integrity Commissioner determines that there is something in regards to conflict of interest or a criminal nature, it's my understanding that they would refer that back, and then that would go to the police. So I believe everything should be covered in that. In regards to the report before us, I did have some questions because I was quite surprised when the report came out to find some of the items, gentlemen, that you had determined were personal or breaches of city policy. And I think the first one I want to bring up, and because I've talked to I think most members of council, and we were all surprised at your determination that we were not allowed to purchase tickets for our spouse when we went to a business or community function. I've been on council for 26 years. It has been a policy of this council from as far back as I can remember that members of council were allowed to purchase tickets to community events when it was community business. Not talking about taking my husband to the theater, but if you were going to a community fundraising event, something that was related to business, that you were allowed to take your spouse. And that is reflected in the policy that we have in regards to approved community events. There's actually two policies. The policy for approved community events includes our spouse. The policy in regards to, and for the members of the public too, in our code of conduct, it is an expectation for members of council that we would get involved and support local community charities and community events. That's in here, it's written down here, it's part of our code of conduct, and it's also part of our policy in regards to our discretionary account. So it recognizes that we as members of council will go out and support, as some of you were here this morning, a Wing Fest, a Rotary event, all of the different community groups. So it's been a long-standing policy of this council that we, if we were purchasing tickets, that we would take our spouse with us. I think most members of council would tell you that they're not going to have their spouse very long if we no longer include them in events, because we go to so many events. And I quite frankly don't like going to dances and evening events on my own. I would much prefer to have the company of my husband with me. And that has been a long-standing practice and policy. Yet, if you look at the report that we received from the auditor, it's in every case, it has where our spouse used a ticket that we were in fact in breach of a policy. I don't believe that's accurate. What it actually is saying in here is if we purchased, it would be okay for us to purchase a table of 8 to go to a Rotary ribbon roll. And I could purchase a table of 8 and I could invite all of the representatives here from the Board of Trade. Under the policy, that would be okay. But if I took my husband, I was breaching the policy. So I don't believe that is an accurate determination, and I do think that should be corrected in this report. I think you took a policy that was intended for one set of rules and applied it for another set of rules. Nowhere in the policy does it say that we are not allowed to bring a spouse to a business event, to a community event. So I do think that that determination in all of our things are inaccurate. And again, I want to quantify that. I don't mean in cases where somebody bought a ticket to go to a theater because it was a good show. I think in terms of members of council doing what they're supposed to do, and that's supporting community charities and community events, that we are not in fact in breach of the policy. I would really appreciate seeing that reversed, because I don't believe it's inaccurate. The other question I would like to raise in regards to, again, in this, it also, when I've got breach of a purchasing card agreement where I purchased 6 tickets to a fundraiser. I did reimburse 2 back, but I didn't reimburse the ticket for my husband, but I'm in breach of the policy because my husband was at the event. So again, it doesn't make any sense that it's okay to purchase tickets to a fundraiser, but your spouse can't be there.
If I could respond to that.
Sure.
The breach actually occurs because you used the card for a personal purchase.
It wasn't a personal.
Yeah, you purchased tickets that you reimbursed because 2 of them were for personal reasons.
I purchased 6 tickets to a fundraiser, and
Then you provided a reimbursement because 2 of the tickets were personal use. So when you purchased the 6 tickets, included in the 6 tickets were 2 tickets which were personal.
but then again, that is where I believe the interpretation is inaccurate. 2 of the individuals who attended the event paid for their own tickets. I think I would have been in breach of the policy if I didn't reimburse the city for those tickets.
The reimbursement was the proper thing to do. The issue is that the American Express corporate card does not permit you to use it for personal purchases. And when you bought tickets, 2 of which were personal, you were in breach of the card. You subsequently reimbursed the city for those 2 tickets, which was the appropriate thing to do. But the initial transaction is a personal purchase because it includes 2 personal tickets.
Okay, so if I purchase, I'm trying to let the public also understand what we have before us. So okay, let me ask you a question then. Under the policy, it's a fundraising event. I purchased 6 tickets. Under the policy, I'm allowed to do that, right? No breach.
It depends on the...
It's a fundraising event. Under the policy, I'm allowed to purchase 6 tickets. I've got the policy beside me.
Are you referring to the Natalie McMaster concert,
Yeah.
or are you referring to a
Yeah, the Natalie McMaster concert was a fundraising gala for Wellspring Chinguacousy.
Yeah, so we're very clear in the report that purchases of tickets to sponsor community events, community fundraisers, are permitted under the policy. It's the use of those tickets that could be in breach.
Okay, so I purchased the tickets. I wasn't in breach of the policy when I purchased the tickets because I assumed that those tickets would all be used by volunteers and my husband and I. And then 2 of the people said they wanted to pay for their own tickets. And so they gave me the money and I gave it back to the city, and now I'm in breach. Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, so there you go. I want to clarify that because and the auditors probably aren't wrong, but it's the way this is reading. Another situation. I have a business luncheon with the Board of Trade. In fact, Mr. Shields, I had a business luncheon with the Board of Trade in regards to a business person of the year event. So we were discussing the event with a member of your staff. It happened to follow a gala at Bramley City Centre. And so it was in the evening, and during the meeting, we decided we would have a glass of wine. So the business meeting was put on my corporate expense account because it was intended to be a business meeting. And the glass of wine that we had, I reimbursed immediately, which shows up here. But for members of the public, because the glass of wine was paid for, even though it was reimbursed, it's still showing up as a breach of the use of the card. And so what we have to do as members of council in these cases is we have to clarify, because it doesn't make any sense. You know, yes, I guess if I had thought about it, I didn't think I was in breach of it, I would have used 2 cards and said put the alcohol on another one. And in the future, you know what? That's probably what I would do. But those are the situations that we're seeing in here. And the last one that and all of these are my own. I'm only speaking to mine because I really think that as members of council, we are accountable to the public individually, and the other members of council can speak for themselves. The last thing I would like to point out, and they do show as breaches in a lot of our forensic audits, it has been a past practice of the municipality that when we go to a business conference like AMO and FCM, a lot of members of council will take their spouse. And they do have spousal programs. So what we normally do is we look for the cheapest fare going. And we get the cheapest fare going through booking.com or expedia.ca or what have you. And then it's always been, as long as I've been on council, it has been an acceptable practice for us to do. So in my report, you will see that there is listed as personal use of a city card. In every case, it was a business event, it was an FCM or something that I was attended. And in fact, the booking was made through my executive assistant, who is amazing at finding good deals. So the booking is made, the city is reimbursed immediately for my spouse's travel, and there is no funds from the municipality have to be expended because it's paid back. And yet that is showing up as a breach. Again, I'm going to tell you quite clearly, I will never, ever, ever again do that. But when it was done as a past practice of the municipality, at no time under any regime, at no time under any policy were members of council told that that was an inappropriate use. Because, in fact, a lot of times, you know, if you're booking a flight, if you don't book together, you could end up with only one seat and no flight. So those are the concerns I have. I really think that the policy in regards to spouses going to events has always been a policy and a practice of members of council for 25 years. And only in the last few months did council pass a resolution to say they weren't going to do it anymore. And the only reason why really I think people have done that is because there's been so much pressure on us. So I think, you know, for all intents and purposes, when the members of the public are reviewing some of these things, you have to take what you see with a grain of salt. And if you have any questions, please, you should contact your counselor and ask them for an explanation, because I don't believe in the majority of the cases that anyone has actually done anything that they would ever believe was untoward. And so I'll just leave it at that. There was a case in here to the auditors where I returned from an FCM conference a day early. I was sick, and the auditors uncovered it, and it was $60, and I paid the $60 back. That has been reimbursed even though it doesn't show it. So I think other than that, that's my comments on the audit. But I would request further discussion around that one policy, because I don't believe it's accurate that we are in breach. It doesn't make any sense at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes, and Councillor Gilligan, and Councillor Moore. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to go back to the discussion at the beginning about the mayor and her issues. I don't know how many members of council know how many times that the mayor is asked to go out to a function, not just one function in an evening, but maybe 4 or 5 of them. So yes, she needs to have somebody drive her there and drive her back home. Because when people want to see the mayor, whoever the mayor is today, next month, next year, the same thing is going to happen. People who have events in their place, they want the mayor to come, and they want the mayor to be there. And so the mayor goes more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times of an evening. I've been out with her once and done that, and I thought, my goodness, that's an awful lot to deal with on a regular basis. And so listening to some members of council saying how bad it was that the mayor had somebody driving her around, of course they should be driving her around. She's on her own. She's in that car and goes to whatever event it is, comes back, and the driver takes her home. So I just hope that in the next term of council, whoever is the mayor at that time has that same respect. Because a lot of the groups do want, whoever it is, for the mayor to be there, and for the mayor to be there on her or his own, do need a driver, because that's what's going on. So that's all I have to say about it, and I think council should be aware of that and make sure that whoever does have that seat has that same value, that they would be able to get somebody to drive them rather than drive themselves and then have to stop, go in and out, especially for the mayor.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I just want to apologize from the public. I think I spent more than $100 misuse. And yeah, we should. The public is paying for that. As Councillor Flashy mentioned, the most spenders are not here. After the mayor, Councillor Bob Cullen and John Hutton, they spent $9,000 and $7,000, but they both are not here. I can suggest to all the council members, don't waste money to hire any other legal advisor or something else. Better pay back and apologize from the public. That's the best solution. Especially, I can ask all the council members, could you raise their hands who want to pay back? No. That's a motion. Is that? It's already a motion. To pay back? Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. And Madam Mayor, I can assist you too. Everybody pointing finger at you. You should say that whatever you miss you're going to pay back. That's what they want to hear from you. Yeah.
Sorry, speak up. I said I did make my statement at the beginning, and I will make a statement at the end. Thank you. Councillor Dillon is speaking.
I'm just saying we should apologize from the public. And the same thing I'm asking to the mayor panel. you should say that I will pay back and apologize for the public. That's what the public want to know. Why? We already spend so much money. I just want to know from CEO, how much money we spend to auditors?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the costs to date that I can tell you today are around $215,000 without tax and around $243,000 with tax.
And how much are we gonna pay more to the new legal person?
That's undetermined at this point until we have an interview and determine the terms of reference.
It's going almost $500,000. Better we should pay back and apologize for the public. I will pay back to the public whatever is $120. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Moore.
Thank you. To comment on Councillor Miles, she's, I think, done a good job of sort of explaining, navigating, not breaking the rules, and that's why I think having administrative oversight is a good decision and a good direction to take. But because you can get caught, none of us are perfect, and, I suppose if I were to put all my expenses, I think I only use, an interesting thing about the $92 on my expenses that showed I put it on the card, it was actually reimbursed by the vendor. The vendor has my personal and my city credit card on file, and inadvertently put it on the city one and noticed right away and reversed it. That's why it shows on the bill, and put it on mine. But notwithstanding that, if I were to put city business on my personal credit card and submit the bills, then I guess I would be in breach because I have a credit card that I collect air miles on. So who do the air miles belong to? I mean, we can make this as complicated as we want to, but it's one of those things that you can't win. But we'll find the best way to navigate through that. I'm wondering if maybe the city manager can clarify the role of the integrity commissioner in this. And my understanding is that the report has gone to the integrity commissioner, and they'll review it for breaches of the code of conduct.
That's correct.
And I don't, because my understanding was that if there was any forecast of fraudulent behavior, that they would not necessarily identify that and take action.
So within the terms of reference, sorry. Through you, Madam Mayor, within the terms of reference for the Integrity Commissioner, he has at his disposal all the statutes under provincial law, including the criminal law component. He may or may not feel comfortable making a determination on such a specialized area of law, and he may well need, if he's going to go down that road, the resources of a specialist lawyer to assist him in making those referrals. So I believe the resolution that's been written speaks to external legal counsel if necessary, and if that direction is given, then it covers off both elements.
Okay, well, I'm not clear on the resolution, so maybe you can, because what I'm really kind of uncomfortable with is the motion on the floor is suggesting that you get legal advice. Is that it?
We could read it out.
Yes,
The
please.
motion that's on the floor is that the CEO, in consultation with the executive leadership team and other city officials, including the necessary external legal advice, investigate the findings of the forensic audit as to any wrongdoing arising from the findings set out in the report, and report back to council with recommended next steps. And I think it was amended to include and check with the integrity commissioner, but that's already obviously happened.
The problem I have with that is that, and Mr. Fowley has already confirmed that today, maybe as we speak, somebody could be asking for a police investigation. So that could be undertaken while we are seen as potentially engaging in a stalling tactic or something that's going to delay something that, an enforcement agency are already looking at. So that's, maybe you can help me to reconcile that, because my inclination, quite frankly, is to direct you as the CEO to, or CAO, sorry, to refer the report, the Deloitte report today, to the police for investigation. I mean, why would we waste time? Or why, and quite frankly, why would we waste our resources if in fact somebody can already be doing that now? So maybe, I know you're dealing with the motion that's before you.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that in fact could be happening, but this is a report from the Integrity Commission, sorry, from the auditor to you. If that's your direction, we would follow it and carry it out. If that's what you'd like staff to do.
Okay, well, if the motion fails, I have a motion that just says, whereas Deloitte reports
Yep.
clearly states that they have no opinion as to whether the information presented in the report is sufficient to establish civil or criminal wrongdoing, as only the court can determine these matters, be it resolved that the CEO be requested to forward the Deloitte forensic audit findings for a police investigation. I think it's far more decisive and prohibits perhaps two actions being taken.
Oh, yes.
I'll second it.
Great.
Let's do it right.
If I
Let's
can,
get to the bottom of this, Counselor.
I know, I
Let's
agree
stop
with
the
you.
allegations and you're not
Well,
satisfied
and
with
the
this
taxpayers
report.
deserve this.
The police report, by the way, is already paid by the taxpayer. Maybe that's a
The,
good idea to stop.
The taxpayers
There you go.
deserve this. We've gone this far.
Send it.
I don't think we stopped, so I'm happy to have you second the motion. I just would like to make a comment and ask the CAO to take under advisement that it is probably most appropriate that it not be referred to Peel Regional Police. That's right. The mayor has been a member of the Peel Regional Police Force. Or a member of the Police Services Board. My apologies. And so I think it would be completely inappropriate to put our fine police force in a potentially very uncomfortable situation. So maybe I should amend it to for an OPP and police investigation. Very nice. Thank you.
Sure don't want to be a police.
Okay, Counselor Moore, let me just read your motion. Whereas the Deloitte report clearly states that they have no opinion as to whether the information presents in the report is sufficient to establish civil or criminal wrongdoing, as only a court can determine these matters, be it resolved that the
CAO, I'm sorry.
okay, be requested to send it for an OPP police investigation. I would like to second the motion, but I want to assure you that regardless of serving on the board of the Peel Regional Police, the police board have no interaction with the operations of the chief and the administration of justice. The forwarding to the OPP will be forwarded to Peel Regional Police because this council exists in the jurisdiction of Peel Regional Police. I know that, so I'm happy to second it if you want it to go to Peel Regional Police and OPP and the RCMP and the Attorney General. Send it as widespread as you want.
I'm quite happy.
I know that it was sent in the previous term. There were packages sent to the OPP, to the RCMP, and to the Attorney General, and none of them acted on it because there was no finding to do so. So what would you like this to do? We live in the jurisdiction of the Region of Peel, and now you're uncomfortable with the Region of Peel Police?
Well, I'm not uncomfortable. I think it's quite unfair for you to characterize it that way. I think there's some obvious conflict of interest. You are a member of the Police Services Board for Peel Regional Police, and the Chief of Police is a former member of your Gala Board. I think that those two reasons in and of itself make it very clear and obvious that it is best that it go to another enforcement agency. I think it would be grossly unfair to put our Peel Regional Police Services in that position.
No, you're not accusing the chief of having a
I
bias.
would never
Thank you
accuse
for
the
that.
chief. I think she's
But
the
counsel, I would like
finest
this to,
issues. I
I'd like
have
to
the
shine a
floor.
light on this.
I have the floor.
Well, please tidy up your comments.
Well, I'm responding to your suggestion that I don't have full and complete confidence in probably one of the finest police chiefs in this country. She is outstanding.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Through you to Councillor Moore, are you putting a motion on the floor that all members of council be investigated by the police?
Yes.
findings of the audit be forwarded to the OPP to determine whether, for an investigation, to determine whether or not there has been civil or criminal wrongdoing. I think that's the logical next step to this.
So you are,
process.
I want to be clear here that you are putting a motion on the floor that all members of council be investigated by the police as a result.
I am
Of a
recommending
fir-
that
of
the
a fir-
findings of the
I'm-
audit.
I'm not
I understand.
finished.
I think
Well-
that Councilor Miles has the floor now.
You know what, this has just gone on and on and on. I thought today might end it, but now members of council are going to be subject to a police investigation because. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we were elected by the public to do a job. And
What's going on?
regardless, to investigate every member of council when the findings in this report for the majority of members of council in no way warrant a police investigation. And there has,
They'll decide pass on to us. We're responsible.
Councilor
I
Miles?
throw up my hands.
Okay, council, we have 3 motions here at the conclusion of this section of the agenda. I'm going to deal with what I will predict are the non-so-controversial motions. The first one, I'll take the shortest one first. Moved by Councilor Gibson and Councilor Palashi that finance staff be requested to review the credit card policy for the mayor and members of council, report back with recommendations for an updated policy. That's what we wanted to have. Are you speaking? You're voting. Good. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. The second motion, moved by Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Sprogieri, that the CAO, in consultation with the executive leadership team, pardon? Oh, you don't want it to go to the integrity commissioner and check into you're pulling your whole motion. So that is now no longer before me. I'll give you that because it was before me. It'll be in there and it's extracted. And this one says, moved by Councillor Moore, whereas the Deloitte report clearly states they have no opinion as to whether the information presents in their report is sufficient to establish civil or criminal wrongdoing, as only a court can determine these matters, be it resolved that the CAO be requested to forward the Deloitte forensic audit findings for a police investigation. Do you want to stick OPP, or can you let them double check the proper protocol to peel OPP, RCMP ceases the Army?
As long as the CAO is very clear that it's OPP. Yeah.
Okay, to a police investigation, not Peel Regional Police. Is that what you want on there? Right? You're not going to mark OPP. You're asking it to be done externally. Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Moore. Who is seconding that motion? Don't want to have, thank you.
You might want to put OPP down.
And that is all members of council reviewing the, pardon? Well, I know that Peel Regional Police is the established jurisdiction here, so it would be a conflict for me to try to detour it, I suppose. Okay, so now you know what the motion says. Is that complimentary or completely different than this one? Okay, all those in favor? There you have your headline. This is all members of council. And I would like to ask, if I could, Councillor Moore? I would like to ask that the instructions be that do this post haste so that the results can be here before October 27. The public has a right to know the truth, and we would like the results of any new movement, any new inquiry to be back to the public before the October 27. I welcome it, and I have no objection to my statements being reviewed thoroughly, again and again. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried.
Earl,
Council, there's
Passes to
one
you.
final motion that has to be dealt with.
I have
It's-
a motion.
Oh,
in
I'm sorry,
regards to
Councillor
the
Miles, I
audit
did have the motion
report.
that, just while I'm doing some motions, moved by Councillor Hames and Fleshy, that the forensic audit report be received. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Now, this is the move by Councillor Miles and Councillor Hames, the forensic auditors be asked to review the policy and past practice in regards to spouses attending community events as appropriate to council policy. That's just to double check so that you have the current policy. That sounds fair. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you. Now, we're going to, well, no, we're not going to bylaws. Were we not dealing with an in-camera matter that we wanted to deal with in public? I sure want to deal with it in public. And have we been able to get a review? Is the lawyer here who gave us the in-camera letter to give us the opinion on why we would or would not do that in camera? It
Through
is
you, Madam Mayor,
2:30. They were expecting-
we're expecting external counsel shortly, at which they'll be able to speak to your question in camera where it currently.
So you want us to move in camera to find out if we can stay in camera? Well, we do have other matters to
You
deal
do,
with in
Madam Mayor, and I
camera.
suggest you follow that process, and by that time, we'll expect counsel to arrive, and we can deal with your question then.
Unfortunately, the public is not aware of the topic that we are wanting to bring in public. Is there any objection to discussing what that matter is before we go in camera? Everybody's here. I'm sure they have some sense of curiosity what the subject is. Is there a breach of in camera? We don't have to disclose that letter and that recommendation, but the matter has been discussed at this council, and it's not new news. It's a well, and Mr. Grant, you had not requested that particular legal opinion, so what would you propose we do? I would like to move that matter be dealt with publicly right now. I'd like to disclose what it's about.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would say the advice remains the same as it was this morning, that it's really a matter that council should have the benefit of the legal advice to determine whether council wants to waive its solicitor-client privilege.
But they're not here on time. Well, I move you waive your privilege, and we have the discussion right now. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
There we go. All those in favor of bringing this matter out into the public right now? There we go. Council, we're now dealing with an item in camera. It is known, that's not a change. I would like to make sure we won't refer to the legal opinion because we haven't been entitled to do that, but we will refer to the subject, and I think that's very important. It is item T7. Councillor Moore, are we talking about this subject?
Auditors?
Thank you. I failed to make some comments with regard to the process that you used for members of council and the mayor. Just wanted Mr. Fowley and your colleague. I just want to thank you very much. I thought the process was incredibly thorough. I appreciated the interview at the beginning and at the end, and for you to give us every opportunity to respond with the documentation that you were requesting, and the open dialogue that we had. I thought that your questions were fair and reasonable, sometimes uncomfortable, but I think that was part of the whole process. So I just want to say thank you. Your findings, I have a few things that I'll probably follow up with you afterwards that weren't in the report that I thought might be, but I think overall the process was just very dignified. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. We're now moving to a matter that was in camera. There are 7 or 8 items in camera that have been properly set in camera. We just voted to move this item out of camera. The subject is council remuneration. The subject is specifically the salary for the office of the mayor. And I want to reiterate that I did cut my salary by close to 20% because it was the right thing to do. Cutting my pay was the right thing to do to set an example and to lead.
She said
I am determined to do that again, and this is here for a legal opinion. There were lots of questions asked on the day that council was curious, as you know, so now we have this before me. I want to reiterate, this mayor cut her salary voluntarily by almost 20%. This mayor cut council expenses by 100%. Cutting my pay was the right thing to do. So it's on the agenda, and council, if you'd like to speak to that, you may do so. Well, that's not true, actually, but I'm not debating with you, sir. I'm debating with whoever's on the board, Councillor Sprovieri.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor, for that. Yeah, and I guess because the report is not public, it should be noted that the issue, the action that you took in going to staff to achieve this pay cut was questioned as to whether it was done under the policy, whether it was done inappropriately, and because there was a number of questions asked about that, some people felt that, well, and I kind of felt that way too, to tell you the truth, that the only reason why you cut your wage in November after about a 6-month headline and being in the news is because of the issue became very controversial and the public demanded. There was a lot of demand from the public that no one could justify why the city of Brampton, the mayor of the city of Brampton, the 9th largest city, would be paid the highest salary in the nation. And obviously, it was the right thing to do, but I think it took too long to do it. It should have been done sooner, as soon as that issue came out, that it was discovered. Now, you know, I guess the whole issue here too is that whether you took the right steps in achieving this goal. And it was questioned because actually this was brought to my attention from a council from Toronto that they had a similar situation with Rob Ford and his brother Doug, who they don't get paid, and they actually, the council had to approve the bylaw to achieve that. So I asked staff to see whether the mayor had the authority to direct a city staff to basically break the rules, break the bylaw. There's a council bylaw that was duly passed and confirmed. And I've always known that whenever there's an alteration of that bylaw or an amendment to a bylaw or an action to it has to be done by council. Staff does not have the authority to change the bylaw. Only council can change the bylaw, and that didn't happen. And why? You know, I would imagine we've been on council 26 years, you and I would imagine you know that. I mean, we went through this forensic audit here. Sometimes, you know, we can't know everything, but this is a pretty standard knowledge that the bylaws are duly passed and can only be changed, amended by council. So I'm surprised that you wouldn't have known that, because if you had known that, I don't think you would have gone to a staff member and asked that staff member to break the rules. Basically, what you've done is you've asked the treasurer to break the rules. I don't know why the treasurer followed your direction. I don't know whether he believed that you had the authority, but I think that any senior staff at that level should know the rules around here, just like anyone, that once council passes a bylaw, it takes council to change it. And you've gone to the staff and you've asked for a change. Now, you may say, well, this is a one-time deal. The mayor goes to the staff, says, I want you to break the rules. Now, if that happened once, how can I know that it didn't happen other times? How can I know that you have not pressured or influenced members of staff to do other things?
That's right.
This is really a serious matter. When the mayor uses her influence or authority or position to go to a staff member and ask them to break the rules, to me that's a real serious breach, and there's nothing to be proud about. That you went about doing it, tried to do it secretly because you didn't want public attention. To me, maybe that was the intention, but you sure put that staff member in a terrible position. And and I'm sure that the manager is going to have to deal with that, as to why a member of staff would listen to the mayor to do something that's not permitted. So I don't know, Mr. Corbett, if you're concerned about this, whether this is something that has to be looked at, but I certainly hope you do, because it's a serious matter. I don't think any member of council, I don't think the mayor should have the ability to go to a staff member and ask them to break the rules. And that's what happened here. So that's a serious matter, Mr. Corbett, and I hope that you look into this and make sure it never happens again. Instruct your staff never to listen to a member of council, never to break the rules. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to reiterate, I cut my salary by 20% because it was the right thing to do. I listened to what people were saying. I have my own legal opinion to validate my decision, and given the chance, I will do it again. I did not alter the council-approved salary to mayor and members of council. I simply didn't accept it. And you do not need a permission slip to not accept your salary. That is my opinion. Others have different opinions, and I am saying I cut my salary, I did the right thing, and I plan to do it again, and that is known. Councillor Moore.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. But we have, as members of council, as a decision-making body, we have a legal opinion before us that says that is quite contrary to your opinion of what it is you have a right to do. And so we have to make a decision based on the legal opinion that's before us. And that is that you did not have the right and authority to direct staff to take the action that you did. So my question through you to the CAO is, what is the remedy for this? We have a legal opinion. We have a legal opinion that says that the mayor did not have the authority to go to staff and ask that her salary be stopped last year. And so do we need to pass a motion to make that right? And then we're going to ask the mayor to bring forward a motion if she says she's going to do the same thing this year. I mean, it is August.
And that would be October, Councillor, because I voted against the salary increase that you all took, and I asked the finance treasurer what it would take to stop my salary, to essentially freeze it at that 2009 rate. I did that individually.
Well, and I
None
understand,
of you did, and I cut my salary, and I cut my
understand
expense
you did that to
account.
set an
I
example.
know that's
I don't know what
embarrassing
kind of
to
an
you.
example you're setting when you keep it a secret from members of council
It's a
and the
personal
members of the
decision.
public. Personal decision.
So I will provide the legal opinion, and you can send them all to the Integrity Commissioner if you would like to do
My
that.
question was to the
Council has the
city manager.
statutory listen, I'm giving you the legal opinion. Council has the statutory authority to set salaries. We agree? We agree. The salaries set for this term were voted on in 2009. The salaries for next term, council voted February 13th in 2013. Every member of this council will some claim they didn't mean to. Any individual councillor can accept less, but not more. Accepting less is against one's pecuniary interest and benefits the municipality. That is not a breach of the provisions of the code. The decision to take less than what is authorized is a personal one and not one that requires council authorization.
What are you reading from, Madam Chair?
I
Because we don't have a
cut
copy
my
of that
pay.
in front of us. We
Well,
don't
I
have a
asked for
copy.
my legal opinion. No, Counselor, I don't use city lawyers like you've had more taxpayers' money spent trying to find the wrongdoing. I have my own independent legal advice. You want me to pay back the pay I was taking? That's about the most
Well, with the
ridiculous
greatest-
pay. You want to force me to take the pay? You want me to pay? Well, I'll tell you, I won't take it. And if you force me to take it, I'll donate it to charity like
Which
I
is
did
what you
once
should have done to
before. It's
start
not
with.
the first time. I
Maybe you
cut
wanna-
my salary.
Maybe you just donate it to your private fundraising.
You know, Councillor Moore, I donated my salary to the Salvation Army Adjustment in 2002 or 2003. This time, we just stopped it, so the money stayed on the table for the taxpayers. This mayor cut her salary. We listened to people, we cut our salary. We were identified as the highest paid council in Canada. I took action. What did you do?
You
gave
kept it a
yourself a
secret.
4%
You kept it a
retroactive.
secret, and you
How come
started
you
these
didn't know you
changes
were the
during
highest
budget
paid?
deliberations and kept it a secret from this
No,
council.
I did not break the rules.
Well,
Councillor.
according to the legal opinion that we have, you did break the rules. So my question through you,
I cut my
my
salary.
question
Are
through
you
you
finished?
to the CAO is what is the remedy to correct the decision made last year that we have a legal opinion that says the mayor did not have a right to do. So she may have a contrary one. We don't have a copy of that in front of us. And I guess if we do get a copy and we agree with that, then we'll undo what you suggest we do today. But we, at this point, in my opinion, we have to remedy a decision that was made last year that was not done legally.
Based on, through you, Madam Mayor, on the legal opinion that was obtained, and now I understand the external legal counsel is present at the meeting, and you can confirm this, is that the remedy would be to reopen the council's remuneration bylaw and make the adjustment in public. If council agrees.
Well, you could move a motion to roll back all members of council's pay, mayor, members of council, and the board finding of your own.
Yes, there are poor
council
people in
compensation
Brampton.
committee and,
1 in 7.
Yeah, 1 in 7 people
Hold
in
all
Brampton
back.
are poor.
1 in 7. Make it retroactive.
Just for the
Well, mine
advice
is
of council.
retroactive to January 1, 2013. If you'd like to all follow suit, to make your motion, I'll make a motion.
Well, perhaps I can suggest,
Send us the tape.
I'm willing to do that. Let's give us two assistants like other municipalities to help us with our work. And whereas you have 6, 7 people in your office to help you, we have 1/2 of the person. So if we want to give us, like the other municipalities, I'd be willing to happily to cut my wage to reflect that. But I don't have to work on my computer until 12 o'clock at night, and weekends also, Madam Mayor. So if you want to make that change, let's all give ourselves 2 assistants, one to answer the phone, one to do some of our work, and let's cut our wages. I'm right across the board. I'm happy to do that. No problem.
Well, I'm not sure who has the floor, but I understand the lawyer has arrived. Are we going to go in camera to get advice on this, or are we going to get legal opinion in public and have the lawyer speak to the report that's published?
Here.
Madam Mayor, in the context of the documents before council, Mr. John Mascaron from the firm Aaron Burles is here, and while not the author of the document the council has seen, he's certainly in a position to field any questions from council on this matter.
Thank you. Would you like to join us? I imagine there are council questions. In the context, I would like to open by Can we put that report then in public? Can that, the first question, sir, was, could your report be placed in public? Do you have any objection to your report being in the public domain? I do not. Are you comfortable with giving us your legal opinion in this public forum?
Your Worship, good afternoon, members of council. Should it be council's desire, I'm pleased to give my comments in public.
Then I think, so you know the issue, there was a concern that whether the mayor could not alter her pay, but simply not accept it. I have my own legal advice, and I will share it with you, that council has the statutory authority to set salaries. You agree?
Yes, I do.
Your report said so. Any individual councillor can accept less, not more. Essentially, I did not alter the approved salary. I simply didn't accept it. The approved compensation for this term was approved in 2009. You did reference the 2013 report. That factually approved the compensation for the new term of council. This council is receiving the compensation. Accepting less is against one's pecuniary interest and benefits the municipality. It is not a breach of the provisions of the code. The decision to take less than what is authorized is a personal one and not one that requires council authorization. Your opinion, I believe in your letter, is contrary to that. So we have two sets of legal advice. I believe I acted properly. I cut my salary by 20%, and I did so in a proper manner. I do not need a permission slip to not accept the approved salary. I did not change it. I simply didn't accept it. I cut my own pay. I think it's unbelievable that we're now extending a meeting with the lawyers, spending the money I probably left on the table to determine if we could cut our pay. So, Councillor Moore, did you want to ask a question? This young man is...
Well, I thought you just asked a question, so I was waiting for an answer.
I was framing the topic because he, with respect, just walked in the door.
I'm going to, well, I'll quote, since I guess it's in public now, on page 7-7. Given the legislative scheme in Ontario where municipal council is the governing body of a local government, it would create chaos and confusion for the municipal administration if they were to be instructed and directed by individual members of a municipal council who often have divergent and conflicting priorities, goals, and plans. You know, there's a lot of reference in here to the Municipal Act, the role of council, the fact that there was a resolution passed by this council in February 2013 that set the remuneration package for the mayor and members of council. You've come to the author of the report has come to the conclusion that for the reasons noted above, it's our conclusion that it was not appropriate for the mayor to ask the treasurer to stop her salary for the months of November and December. It is our opinion that the mayor did not have the power, jurisdiction, or authority to direct city staff with regard to the payment of her salary, or something other than what was established by council in the remuneration bylaw. We say this notwithstanding that she is the chief executive officer of the city, and even if it appears on its face to be contrary to her own financial self-interest. Moreover, her request to the treasurer appears to be a direction to staff, which would be a contravention of 2.0 of the code. There's also some reference in here with respect to the authority under, and I have trouble trying to find it quickly, but the role of a chief executive officer to I'll leave it, if you could respond to that, because it was my opinion last year, and it remains that any change to the mayor's salary was a decision of this council, and that there was in fact a contravention. So it was nice to have an external legal opinion that concurred with that, but the mayor has a contrary opinion from her legal counsel.
If I could, Your Worship, my view of the matter is, as stated by my partner Jody Johnson, who consulted with me, and I prepared the opinion that Councillor Moore just read. it is my view that a single member of council, including the head of council, has no authority to change the remuneration that has been established by council. With all due respect, Your Worship, I believe I do not agree with the legal opinion that you have received. I view the matter quite differently. I view the matter as council having set the remuneration, and you certainly have the opportunity to accept the money and do with it what you'd like, but you have no authority, in my view, to direct staff to stop a payment to you or to do anything other than what the remuneration bylaw says that you should do. The salary was established by council for all members of council, including the head of council, and there is no authority that I see where you can say, no, change that. I'd like to accept something else. Notwithstanding it may be contrary to your financial interest, I don't think that makes a difference with respect to the matter at all.
So thank you very much, Councilor. Do you have another question?
Maybe if you could speak to the indoor management rule that you make reference to in your letter.
Yes. The indoor management rules is, I'm sorry, Your Worship, through you. The indoor management rule is a well-known manner of operation with respect to corporations, business corporations. And it essentially says that if you, as an officer of the corporation, hold out that you have ostensible authority to act, you can act and still bind the corporation. That rule does not apply to municipal corporations, which are a unique form of corporation created in Canada. Municipal corporations are, of course, created under the Municipal Act, and therefore that rule doesn't apply. So the way I view it is clearly that council is the governing body for the municipality. It's board of directors, if you will, and only council can bind the municipality unless there's been a delegation of authority or a specific itemization and a delegation of power to a particular member of council or the head of council.
Okay. So my question then, through you, Madam Mayor, to the city manager is, given the legal opinion that we have before us, and the mayor says she is going to ask staff to stop her paycheck again this year, how will staff respond to the request?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the process that would ensue, as I indicated earlier, is that to remedy the situation would be to ask council to reopen the matter, and speaking with the clerk, that would be a reopening and a 2/3 vote to amend the bylaw adopting the mayor and council's salary to reflect the reduction for this year, and it's the same request as for last year, then to do it in the same manner. So that would be the process that would be followed.
And I guess my question, and maybe it's just too obvious, Madam Mayor, but what is your objection to doing that?
I wasn't objecting.
Well, you know, we've got a legal opinion that says you weren't entitled to do it, that's fine. You have one that says you were. If your goal is to stop your salary for a period of time, just like saying, is this the hill you're going to die on? Like really, it doesn't really matter. Just bring a resolution forward and ask this council to make a decision. I can't imagine that if you had come to council or raised it during budget deliberations last year, that there would have been an issue. And we could have dealt with this in a managed way with respect to the whole bylaw and the whole way that council is remunerated. We made a decision a number of years ago, I don't think it was the wrong decision, that we place ourselves, as a result of a recommendation from a citizen committee, to place ourselves on the grid. That was a logical and appropriate way to deal with our salary. If for some reason that has changed and this council changes their mind, or you've changed your mind, then I think that we need to discuss the whole issue and not start, throwing attacks and doing things. I think that, if there's a logical way to deal with this that is, less chaotic, then I think we need to do that. But, you know, how things got out of whack, and it's kind of hard to describe to the general public, is that in 2008, there was a review of the salary, non-union salary grid, which changed the grade 4, which is where members of council are modestly, changed grade 10, where you're placed, less modestly, let's put it that way. And so it was not intended when council approved the process that we were going to be paid on. I think it may warrant a complete revisit, and maybe that's the role of the next council to undertake to have that done, to just talk about the appropriateness of our salary in relationship. You keep saying we're highest paid across the country. Well, you know, that's absolutely just not a correct statement, and just because you say it doesn't make it true. So, so my question is, you know, what is your objection to just putting a motion to remedy the decision made last year to stop your salary? I think that is just a way to make the records correct.
So the council,
it's simple.
I cut my salary by 20%, and now you want to give me the permission slip to do that. So you're going to make a motion to make it already, I have the floor now. You're going to make a motion, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by somebody, that we accept the mayor stopped her salary in 2013. Is that what you want to do?
Last December, when we were discussing freezing our salaries around this table, which we did, you had already stopped your salary. We passed a resolution so we didn't take the increase. And yet you knew that you had stopped your salary and didn't see yourself as being part of a resolution to make that, for the purposes of record keeping, correct. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you for permission. I'm just asking you to correct the record for purposes of history, if you will, that we passed a resolution to ratify the decision that you made to have your salary stopped for 2 months. I understand that was a decision that you made, but we passed a resolution to freeze our salary. I don't know why we didn't have to pass a resolution for you to not take your increase.
Well, let's.
Or for you to take 2 months' salary.
Finished.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So, council, you had a presentation on December 10th of this council by the Council Compensation Committee that you have unanimously supported for every time they've been before this council. And they reminded you that the mayor of Brampton is the 9th paid mayor, not the top paid mayor. In fact, that day, there was even a headline, council reminded that the mayor of Brampton is the 9th paid mayor, because you had forgotten the February decision of 2013, adding further compensation to the mayor. What we're seeing here, folks, is how tough it is to adjust your compensation. You push money at the mayor, and then you're upset when we stop it. Listen, I cut my salary. I didn't accept it. I didn't play with, the council approved what we're entitled to get. I simply said, and don't throw staff under the bus, that's not fair. I simply sent a memo to say this is a personal decision, and I have a legal opinion that says I can do so. I did not reopen the council compensation at the budget committee because I had already taken steps personally. There was no appetite around this council to discuss council compensation. Recall, I did put a motion on the floor to stop the incremental adjustment of 2%, and several members of council, you know who you are, balked immediately and said, oh, we can't do that. In fact, it's well documented in the media, and it was referred to budget. There was no appetite to adjust council compensation. What you did was, at the budget committee, you froze the escalation in the formula that was established by the compensation committee. You did not freeze your salaries. You voted for a recommendation on the cost of living for 4% retroactive to January 1, 2013, and I spoke and voted against it. And I knew that there was no appetite here to take less, so I took a decision personally for my own moral, doing the right thing, and I had stopped my pay. I then contacted the treasurer once again and said, well, given that I've been given an entitled raise, how many pays must I stop in 2014 to achieve the same thing? And I was given a response. This wasn't one pay. This wasn't snuck in at the end of the year. This wasn't altered to be paid later. This was a genuine, I cut my salary because it was the right thing to do. And I stopped 4 paychecks, November and December, 1/6 of the year. If you want to put a motion on to say the council now is aware of that and it's accepted, that will probably please the legal opinion that we have a difference of opinion on. But it doesn't fix anything. If you're saying you have to take it, then I can tell you right now, I won't take it. I won't take it. The money's left on the table, I listened to the people, and I cut my pay. So, Councillor Sprovieri, did you have a motion or something? Send it to the Integrity Commissioner.
That's,
or we'll
it's
do a different
it's
motion.
your business, Mayor. You want to put a motion, you want to live in a, it's almost like living in the illegal act, that's your problem. But just a clarification from staff. The mayor made a statement that we took a 4% cost of living index increase. I don't believe we've had a 4% increase in ages. I think, I believe the cost of living may have gone up 1.5, around between 1.5 to 2%. Can anyone verify what the cost of living?
Let's ask the city manager what increase he gave.
What the cost of living index was last?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have those numbers handy, but I can retrieve them and hopefully get back to you.
I know for sure that 4% inflation cost of living happened years ago. It hasn't happened in the last 10 years.
The city manager has the information. Maybe he can answer the question.
My recollection is that there was a 2% raise given in 2013, another 2 for 2014. But we'll validate those numbers for you.
And that was across the board for even members of staff and everything.
It was all non-union staff.
Right across the board.
Not increase your salary.
Thank you.
Okay, council, there are no further speakers, so I'm going to ask the city manager, you said there should be a motion put on the floor to have council accept the decision of the mayor last year. If that's what you choose to do, somebody please move and second the motion so we can move forward. Then we have the advice of Councillor Moore that when the mayor is prepared to do the same, please come to council and seek permission openly and publicly for all to see. And I still disagree. I don't need a permission slip. And I invite council to do the same. Turn back the 4% raise you gave yourself retroactive to February 1, 2013. Pay it back.
Reopen it?
Well, if we're moving to reopen the council compensation for all members of council, then I believe that the recommendation that was unanimously supported that came from the committee, if that's being reopened, then I think the vote should be for all members of council. I am not separate, as the lawyer has just told you, from all members of council. We move collectively as one. So we're either altering all members of council pay at this time, or you're accepting my personal decision of September or October 2013.
Decision for 2013 to make it legal.
Okay, that's the motion.
2014, if you want to do 2014, let's do that now also.
So is that the motion you have?
Yes, that's the motion.
So if the council is giving the mayor permission slip that I can cut my pay. I don't think you need to reopen the issue to make a retroactive decision, but if you want to reopen, then I think you need to speak to all of yours.
Not doing anything.
Trying to keep this a personal decision.
What she's doing at the
So through you, Madam Mayor.
That's why city of Brampton getting corrupt every day.
This debate today, I'm not prepared in terms of the motions that would be reopened, but if council wishes to move a motion to essentially accept and validate the actions of the mayor in terms of what she did with a personal decision she made in 2013, and accept and validate intended actions in 2014, that could be a proper motion, and if after review of this it may require a reopening, that will be advice that I will give this council in September 10th council meeting.
That sounds very good. Is that moved and seconded? All those in favor That carried. So the council has given the mayor permission for something I didn't need. I cut my pay. John, the discussion has ended. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, that's right. It is ridiculous.
John, we're now moving forward with the agenda. If you want to have your comments, just let us move properly through the agenda. There's been a lot said today, and I would never blame staff. That's not something I am known for. I'm a champion for staff. Don't put words in my mouth, Councillor. I cut my pay. Thank you for acknowledging it publicly that she didn't take it, as you were all attacking me back when I was unable to be in the chamber for 3 hours. Council, we're now at the bylaws? Oh, pardon me. We're now at public question period, is that right? Okay, so any member of the public who has a question on decisions made today, this is your time to come forward, state your name, and ask your question. We will endeavor to answer you today if we can, or get an answer for you as soon as possible, matters today. So please come forward, state your name. Don't say your address out loud. We can write that down for somebody. That's better. Right at the front. Thank you.
There was much discussion at the beginning about a card.
Oh, sorry. Your name, please?
Oh, my name is Betty Doyle.
Betty Doyle?
Yes.
D-O-Y-L-E? And we'll
Yes.
get your address. Don't say it on television.
There was much discussion at the beginning about a card and using a business card. As far as I know in business, that's been a business practice for a long time. And I'm disappointed that the council would feel that you could use a business card for something else, even if it's a glass of wine, and pay back. That's totally out of line. I do believe what was not clarified was the fact about councillors bringing their spouses, and whether that's paid by the city taxpayers. And I'd like a response to that.
I believe the discussion, just to keep it, I will provide an answer if it's not accurate, somebody jump in. I believe the discussion was that in cases where flights were booked together and a spouse flight was paid, that was fully reimbursed, and that was found by the auditors to have happened.
Yes, I understand that, but again, in business practices, it wouldn't have been paid back. Your card wouldn't have been used and paid back. And that's been a business practice for many, many years in the field, outside of here. However, but going to a gala, if I may just finish, but going to a gala, let's say to supporting the Red Cross, like, I don't know, United Way or something, and you take your spouse, is the spouse's ticket being paid by the residents of Brampton? Yes.
Okay, so the new policy, I'll tell you as budget chair, the new policy is no spouse's tickets are allowed at all.
Didn't answer the question.
Okay, in the past, to clarify,
yes,
and that's one of the questions that I had asked the auditors was, that in the case of going to a city function, there was a policy on approved city functions that you could take your spouse. That has now been changed. But there was never a policy that you could take your spouse to the theater or any place like that on the taxpayer, which was being done.
yes, I did understand the Rose Theater wasn't part of it. But I wasn't sure then, the rules-based versus the value-based, there were two discrepancies in dates. Mr. Spovieri talked about that there was a change in 2007, and I believe Ms. Miles talked about 3 years ago.
It was actually 2011.
No, he's got one in 2007. There's different versions.
Perhaps there could be clarification of the proper version for reference.
I believe all of that will be looked at, but we'll try to get you an answer today, right now.
Well, I think that what's important is the answer, like, for the public, and you mentioned a code of conduct book. The code of conduct book, is that part of value-based, or It's separate. Is it separate?
In our book for our code of conduct, it's my understanding that the values-based code of conduct was put into place in 2011. We did have a policy in 2007, but it was rule-based, and it had always been rule-based. So the
So it was
conduct
rule-based up to 2011?
up until 2011, where it became value-based. But even though it was value-based, it did not allow council members to do whatever they wanted. There were policies within the code of conduct for a wide variety of things, including financial policies.
With all respect, Ms. Miles, I think that I had some understanding of the rule-based versus the value-based, but the dates were not the same, so I'm wondering if Mr. Spovieri doesn't know when it changed, when he said 2007, and so that was my concern.
May 16, 2007.
Let the clerk answer. Let the clerk answer.
Sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was a mayor and councilor expense policy in effect as of 2007, somewhat rules-based. In February of 2011, council, when they adopted their new code of conduct, adopted a new mayor and councilor's expense policy that was more values-based. Subsequent to that, in May of this year, May of 2014, council approved a new mayor and councilor's expense policy that is more rules-based.
Okay, well, that's my question in terms of the clarification, so that everybody is on the same page starting now.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there another member of the public who would like to come down for a public question period? And following this, we read the bylaws to conclude the meeting, and then the next council, and then we move adjournment. No, we don't. We're moving in camera for the other 6 items. I apologize. Yes, sir. Name?
Sukhminder Hanshaw, good afternoon, guys. I understand I have reconciliation that a couple months back, council passed a resolution that if forensic audit finds any wrongdoing, the money will be reimbursed within certain hours. Forensic audit report is here. When are you guys writing that check back to the city?
Well,
besides the police investigation, that's a criminal investigation, wrongdoing will be charged. But this is a civil matter of the money.
Yes,
if I'm late with my taxes, I'm penalized with a penalty.
Thank you, Hansel. I think in the Deloitte report, they reported on the instances where council had identified and had already paid back the monies. And if there are further discoveries, I imagine the same will apply, as already outlined in the motion. If it was not a business expense and it's been identified, then it would be paid back. But I think they're identified in the report how many had been paid back, if not all, most, some. Is there anything I can add? Do you want to read that motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Council passed a resolution in February of this year with respect to the forensic audit that said, should any findings of contravention of city policies or procedures for members of council expenses be found and confirmed through the forensic audit, the specific member of council be required to repay the specific expenses from their personal funds. Presumably, Madam Mayor, through you to council, this would be something that the Integrity Commissioner would be taking up when he reports back to council.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
No, it doesn't, because it doesn't say anything about the Integrity Commissioner. It says you're going to pay back.
Well, council have each received the report last night identifying matters, so it'll be up to each member to determine if there's further checks to write.
Will that be made public as well?
It's a good idea. Council, can you agree to make public when you're doing that disclosure? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question. Welcome, Linda Zanella.
Hi, Linda Zanella. I don't expect an answer today, but I would like you to get back to me with the number of RFPs that happen in the city on a weekly basis. Like
The number
just
of RFPs?
RFPs that go out for all kinds of things.
RFPs and tenders?
Yeah.
We just have, I guess you're looking at the size of the activity of the city. That number could be probably obtained and sent to you if you leave your email and maybe copy members of council.
Yeah, with a rough number of how many a week would be going to.
Yes. or it might be at monthly, there'd be seasonal to do with certain things. Does that, we can furnish that information? Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Paramjit Singh Berdi. Just want a little reminder. The motion was passed on February 12, 2014 regarding after my proposal and lots of big discussion. The wording was, should any finding of contravention of city policies or procedures for members of the council expenses be found and confirmed through the forensic audit, the specific member of council be required to repay the specific expenses from their personal funds.
Right.
It was very clear, no one to discuss that you have to pay back if somebody's spent something like that. And after all the revelations in the forensic audit, it's really very embarrassing. It's not good for all residents, not for the council, even for all the residents. It's not good whatever happened today and whatever happening from last few months, the same discussions for many times. And I just want to suggest one thing. We already spent a lot. Before that, for the integrity commissioner, there's new integrity commissioner, now the forensic audit, now you're talking about the legal advice, now there's a OPB involved in that. Just stop paying our tax money and let the people decide on October 27. That's what I want to say. Thank
Let
you.
the people decide. Good comment, thank you. Welcome. Was there a question? I want to make sure that we didn't miss the question. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keith Roy Miller. Listening today, I still didn't get an answer regarding reports in the Star that our mayor is the top paid mayor of Canada. I'm just wondering if I can get a clarified answer, whether she's the 9th or the 1st, or what position is she in?
Well, do you want to
Her
answer that? I
salary.
mean, I could answer it, but the council did receive a presentation. It was clarified. The salary of the mayor paid by the office of the mayor is.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the report that was brought back to council took the effort of comparing apples to apples, because mayors in different cities are on different boards and participate in different commissions and OMERs, et cetera. So when you take the comparison on an equal basis, then our mayor currently is paid on an equal basis at the 9th level in the nation.
So the report in the Star, is that incorrect or is it correct?
Well, if you, again, it's incorrect based on the correct information, comparing apples to apples, on purely a local-based mayor's salary.
Thank you.
Councillor Gibson, you have the bylaws?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have before us, covered by myself and Councillor Dillon, bylaws 202, 2014 to 241, 2014 Port Council at its meeting of August 6, 2014, beginning with required number of readings taken by the mayor and city clerk and a corporate secretary.
All those in favor of the bylaws as read? Hands up. Yep, unanimous. We're back to unanimous. I think they've all been unanimous today. Council, we now have a motion to move into closed session, following which we will rise and report on those matters that can be dealt with or that must be dealt with after we open the door. We're moving into closed session for the following items. I'm able to say these words in open session. Item T1 and T2 are minutes from closed session. Item T3, 4, and T5 are matters of proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. Item T6 is a labor relations matter. When we rise and report in public, we will have the confirming bylaw. I want to confirm the next council meeting, regularly scheduled council meeting, is Wednesday, September 10, 2014 at 1 p.m. In this chamber. We'll now move in camera. Thank you.
So disappointing.
Drink.